All right, so you've made it. You're heading to medical school, which means you're obviously smart. But here's the thing, and this is a big one. Med school isn't just more school. It's not just a harder version of what you've done before. The amount of information coming at you is like a fire hose, and the curriculum is always changing. So just being smart, honestly, it's not going to be enough. To really succeed, you've got to learn how to learn all over again. So let's break down exactly how you do that.
Okay, first things first, we have to talk about the shock. I mean, the real culture shock of it all. A lot of students show up thinking it's going to be like secondary school, but harder. They expect someone to just teach them everything they need to know. But that is not what happens. The reality is, well, it's a huge, jarring change.
And this quote, it just nails it. You ask a question and the answer you get is, how are you going to look that up? That right there captures the huge shift in responsibility. You're not a passenger anymore with a teacher guiding you. Nope. You're in the driver's seat now, and you're the one who has to figure out how to navigate. It's a total flip from being told what to learn to suddenly having to figure it all out on your own. I mean, look at this contrast. It really says everything you need to know. That clear, well-defined path you had before? Gone. In medical school, you are literally drawing your own map. And the amount of information, it's just so massive you can't possibly manage it without a real strategy, especially when the curriculum itself is basically a moving target. So what about the old go-to strategy, right? Cramming. We've all done it. Well, in med school, it's an absolute recipe for disaster. For one, there is just way too much stuff to cram. Second, the exams aren't just about spitting back facts. They're going to ask you to apply what you know. And here's the most important part. The stuff you cram for a test, it's gone a week later. And look, that might be fine for a history exam, but it's downright dangerous when that's the knowledge you need to take care of a real live patient. Which brings us to a really tricky question. When you're faced with what feels like an infinite amount of information, how in the world do you know what's actually important? And maybe even more crucial, how do you know when you've learned enough about one topic and it's time to just move on? This little story here is the perfect example of the danger. You have a student who gets completely lost, spending days and days diving deep into some super rare condition because they wanted to understand it completely. And what was the result? They totally missed the basics of a much, much more common condition. The truth is, you could do an entire PhD on just one disease, and you still wouldn't know everything. Learning to judge what's enough is the whole game. And yeah, this experience is so common. That desire to understand things fully. It's great, it's admirable. But if you don't have some kind of framework to guide you on how deep to go, you're just going to run out of time. You'll end up neglecting the core stuff you absolutely have to know. So the big question is, how do you find that balance?
Well, this is where a model like Bloom's taxonomy is actually super useful. It gives you a roadmap. It shows that learning isn't just one thing. It has levels. At the bottom, you have just knowing and remembering facts. But med school exams, and way more importantly, real life with patients, demand that you're operating at these much higher levels. You've got to be applying, analyzing, and putting information together to solve actual problems.
Okay, so if you're going to learn at that deeper level, you first need to understand the machine you're working with, right? Your own brain, your memory. And this isn't just some abstract theory. These are practical, real-world principles that will make your study time so much more effective. I want you to think of your memory like a giant, messy spider web. Seriously, every little piece of knowledge is a point on that web, and the strands are all the connections between them. So when you learn something new, don't just try to stick it out there on its own. You have to actively connect it, link it to things you already know. When you do that, you're not just strengthening the new information, you're making your old knowledge stronger too. And I absolutely love this analogy, the vaccination model. Think about it. Just like a series of vaccine shots builds up your immunity over time, spaced repetition builds up your long-term memory. Seeing something once, it's pretty weak. But if you review that same material at specific times, say after 3 days, then 3 weeks, then 3 months, you're building this really robust, long-lasting memory that you'll be able to count on for your entire career. You know, our brains are weird. They're not great at remembering dry, boring facts. What they do remember are images, feelings, and sensory details. And you can totally use this to your advantage. So let's say you need to remember that pus in the lungs can cause finger clubbing. Well, create a really vivid, maybe even a kind of gross mental image of it. Imagine it dripping. Imagine the sound, the smell. The more of your senses and emotions you can bring into it, the stronger that memory hook is going to be.
you won't forget it. All right, so we get the challenges, we get a little bit of the theory behind how memory works. Now let's get practical. This next section is all about the actual tools, the things you can do to go from just passively reading stuff to being an active, engaged learner.
And this is the question you have to be asking yourself all the time. Are you just reading, or are you actually learning? Come on, you know that feeling, right? When you've read the same paragraph 3 times and you realize you haven't absorbed a single word? That's passive reading. Real learning, effective learning, is an active process. It takes effort. It takes energy.
Look, those passive things we all do, like rereading or highlighting everything, they feel like you're working, but honestly, they don't do much for long-term learning. Active strategies, though, they force your brain to actually wake up and engage. So instead of just highlighting, try summarizing a chapter in your own words, or turn your notes into questions for yourself. Or, and this is one of the best, try explaining a really complex topic to a friend. If you can do that, you know it. And what's the foundation for all of this? It really comes down to one thing: keywords. Now, a keyword isn't just some important word you pull out of a textbook. It's your word. It's a personal word or a short phrase that, for you, acts like a trigger to recall a whole bigger idea or concept. This is why a system like the Cornell method is so brilliant. It's because it forces you to be an active learner. You see, after a lecture, you don't just close your notebook and forget about it. No, you immediately go back, you review your notes, you pull out those crucial keywords and questions for that side column, and then you try to boil the whole page down into one single summary sentence. Suddenly, your notes aren't just a record of what was said, they're a powerful, active tool for studying. Now, if you're more of a visual person, mind mapping can be an absolutely fantastic tool. It lets you literally see the big picture and how all these different concepts connect to each other. The real key here is to make it personal. Use colors, use little drawings, whatever means something to you. The process of actually creating the map is a super powerful way of learning in and of itself. Okay, so we've covered the initial shock, we've talked about strategies, and we've looked at some tools. But to finish up, I want to zoom way out and talk about the real reason we're doing any of this, because this is about so much more than just passing your next exam. Listen, trying out these new methods, it's going to feel slow at first. It might even feel kind of difficult, and that is totally normal. They say it takes about 3 months of deliberate, consistent practice to really get fluent in a new skill. And learning how to learn is no different. So be patient with yourself. The time you put in now is an investment that is going to pay off for your entire career. And this is probably the most important point of all. It's the mindset shift that changes absolutely everything. You have to realize that you're not studying to pass exams. You're studying to be a doctor. Every single note you take, every concept you wrestle with, it's not for a grade. It's another brick in the foundation of knowledge you will use to take care of people for the rest of your life. So I'm going to leave you with this one question to think about. When a life is on the line, what kind of knowledge are you going to have? Is it going to be that fragile, half-forgotten stuff that you get from cramming? Or is it going to be the deep, solid, interconnected knowledge that you built through active, deliberate practice? The choice you make right now in how you study today, that's what determines the kind of doctor you're going to be tomorrow.